Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And I'm Mina.
And this week we are discussing Series 6, Episode 9, Night Terrors by who else? Mark Gatiss. This episode didn't cause me pain. That's about all I can really say for it other than that.
I'll
second
liked
that.
This episode.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fine. It's pretty decent.
It's a weird trend with this series that in the series where they've arguably tried for the most like serialized, like not serialized, but like direct continuity arc storytelling, that the standalone episodes seem to be like the ones that shine above the rest, because outside of the Doctor's Wife, this is my clear favorite. Like, this is my second favorite episode of the series, and it'll probably like be bumped down to third.
That's a depressing sign of the overall quality of the series.
I mean, yeah, it definitely is.
There is a pretty large gap between this and the Doctor's Wife.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get more into it, but yeah, I enjoyed it quite a big deal. Typical, enjoyable, serviceable Doctor Who. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take it a step further. It was really good for us. Like we remembered this being one of the real highlights of the season, and just one of the like actual scariest episodes in Doctor Who, and just like it really nailed that. I don't know. There wasn't a moment where we weren't like, wow, this is a really fucking good episode.
Yeah, there's definitely some bits that I like about it. There are some bits that I don't like as much, that don't quite vibe with me as hard. Like, I'll just say it right now. The fucking nursery rhyme shit that's like the shit you hear in like horror movie trailers nowadays, it doesn't do anything for me. It's just kind of stupid.
It might just be because we're less like oversaturated with horror tropes, but I don't know. It was.
I
good
don't
for
actually
us.
consume that much horror. I just get ads for shit on YouTube all the time.
Yeah, it's
Like, really, the only horror stuff that I really consume are like this and Resident Evil games.
Yeah, this might be my favorite Gatiss story, at least so far.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's definitely like, you can't say there's particularly anything innovative or special about it. It felt very classic Who, or even like some of the like very early Star Trek, where it's like clearly it's like this trope or this feel it's going toward, but because they just like fucking nail the execution, even though it's nothing special, it's still like notable to me as like a success, especially because this series has kind of missed the mark overall. But even disregarding all that, even in a vacuum, I still enjoyed this episode, despite the fact that like Amy and Rory should clearly be going through more trauma than they are.
And I think part of that was did this one get moved around?
Yeah, this was originally going to be I think this was originally replacing either Doctor's Wife or the Black Spot. No, the Doctor's Wife was moved up because it was considered less dark than this, and Moffat felt that was like front loading too much heavy shit toward the beginning. And I don't actually mind the placement, other than the fact that like
and it's the same complaint that we've been having the entire season, which is the stuff that happens in the arc episodes doesn't matter outside of the arc episodes.
Yeah, like I was thinking when they get sucked, when Amy and Rory get sucked into the dollhouse, it's like I would even accept that, like, if all they did to acknowledge it was that, like, Amy started freaking out because she was worried she'd been, like, taken again. If that's
the closest that we get is Rory being like, "Oh man, we're dead again."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the thing. But as I said, like, I'm for this episode, any complaints I have are largely going to be nitpicks or just a symptom of the overall series as a whole, because just confined within the episode itself, I think Gatiss just did his job.
Yeah.
And it's a good episode, and again, probably my favorite of his so far.
Yeah, I really dig sort of the tone and atmosphere it has, even if, as I said, I think it goes a little bit too tropey in some places for my tastes. Like there's a really uncommon for Doctor Who, especially after RTD, kind of atmosphere of this kind of grungy, dingy council estate that we haven't really gotten. Even I don't even know if we really got it in RTD era, because like, yeah, you had the Powell estate, but generally there wasn't shit going down there.
Yeah, the props to whoever did like the framing for the apartment complex, but it just like it looked at the same time confined, and like when there were wide shots of it, just like seeing how it almost framed like it was going on like endlessly, and the Doctor and the companions were like framed like very small against it. Small touches like that, like in the directing and like peeking behind the dark corners and stuff, like it's very typical horror. It's very typical framing, but like still there's smart choices to make to like create this tone and this mood, and they nailed it.
It's closer to like Attack the Block than like normal Doctor Who, which is good because Attack the Block fucking rules.
Yes.
Yeah, and we really liked the direction, like specifically. It's one thing that stood out to us, just like the cinematography and, like you said, the shots with the apartment and stuff. But really throughout it, just the camera work and the lighting especially did a lot of good work in this episode that you don't get in a lot of episodes. Just like the way directing is used in this episode, because usually you get pretty boilerplate fine cinematography in Doctor Who episodes, and then there's like some that stand out, and I think this is one of the ones that's like, I wouldn't say it's exceptional, but it definitely like stood out enough that I was like, hey, this is a well-directed episode.
Also, I definitely say they did some good casting. That kid definitely looks and acts like an alien.
I was gonna bring that up because normally that's like probably considered bad child acting, and there were a few moments where I was just like, okay, come on, kid. But like for the majority of the part, it's like it's kind of got that, like, what people say about like the PS1 era Resident Evil games, where the shitty acting actually helps the unsettling atmosphere because like it's not acting like a normal person would. Yeah, they smartly have the emotional crux of the story be on the parents, and specifically the dad. And I'll note two things. Yeah, a little
weird that the mom's just gone for the whole fucking episode.
Yeah, but I will say, like, two things I like about the dad. One, I think it's more rare. This is getting, like, more common, but especially in traditional media, to have, like, the main crux of, like, the parental energy and, like, examining that role in, like, a man who just, like, loves his kid, and there isn't any, like, bullshit machismo or, like, toxic masculinity, or I need to fulfill this role and
Harry
provide
dad
for
game
my family.
Here.
Yeah, like, I like that aspect about him. And number two, ever fulfilling my role as the resident Star Wars geek, that dad is in Rogue One. He's...
Really?
Yeah, he's the guy who gives Cassian the information.
Oh, is he the dude who gets fucking... it's marked by Cassian?
Yeah, he's the guy who has, like, the broken leg or whatever, and then he shoots him, like, dead.
Damn.
Like, betrays him. So, like, props to that guy for making it in that. But it's funny, because I was like... and I noticed it the first time I saw the movie. I was just like, is that the dad from Night Terrors?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Just fun trivia thing about him. But no, I genuinely think that character has a good dynamic with the Doctor. And it's so funny because we have this same, like, cliche kind of power of love story when we get to the second Craig episode. But this is just so much better.
Oh, God, the fucking second Craig episode is awful. Oh my god, yeah, no. Also, like, I like that for being like an episode about a child's like like the things that terrify a child, like it's specific enough and interesting enough that it actually becomes relatable. Like the lift noise thing, like I did not grow up in a council estate in London. I grew up in a fucking house in like slightly suburban Southern California. But if I did live in a fucking like London council estate, that elevator would have scared the shit out of me as a kid. And like hearing the noise of random people like walk by, like, yeah, that's good. It's more inspired than like generic monsters or like weird, like the lamp in your on your like wardrobe fucking making a weird shadow that looks like a monster.
Yeah, that's why I say it felt very classic at times, because it's just taking the like fear of the mundane and elevating it and taking just like normal everyday imagery and giving it that sinister feel. Just like, oh yeah, we lock things that scare you in this like cupboard, but there's actually like some fucked up shit in there. Like that's simple, but it's good, and it's it's a simplicity that this series has been lacking. It's refreshing.
And in addition to the fucking it being classic because of that, it also feels very classic because going to a period house that's supposed to be like, oh, it's a shrunk down dollhouse, is exactly the sort of dumb shit classic would do to save money on sets.
Yes.
Yeah, I think everything about the setting is sort of worked into the story, and I think that's very good. Like there's a reason for the setting, and that setting is justified through what happens in the story. And like adding on to the things about like it being like the fears being specific to council estate stuff, there's also the fact that the landlord ends up being one of the things he's scared of. Because
no, I was watching this the other day and I was like, based Mark Gatiss? What? Except then he's revealed to be alive at the end. Boo.
Boo. The real enemy in this story was landlords.
Yeah. And he didn't take the dog, so he recognized that the dog was just a dog and therefore not complicit.
Based Tenza. Yeah.
Hey, wait, his name. Wait, I forgot their name. The fucking Tenza. Get out of here, Chibnall. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh yeah, the Tenza, Shenza.
I see you tried to pull it. I see you tried to pull fucking what's his name out of here. Put him back. Nobody gives a shit. Put him back.
Wait, what's that a reference to?
The fucking, remember Teeth Guy from The Woman Who Fell to Earth?
No.
The villain of Woman Who Fell to Earth, the guy who's got like all the human... Yeah, he's from a race called the Stenza, and they kept trying to shoehorn it in throughout that whole season, and everyone was like, "What? Why are you doing this? This race sucks. They're not interesting."
Oh yeah, and by shoehorn in, I think they come up a total of 3 times, but
but every time they do, it's like, why?
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. I will say again, the only complaint I can levy against this episode is that Rory and Amy have like Chibnall era like depth to them, in that they're just like there, and it feels very like these feel like in some ways like early series 5 Amy and Rory, except I can't even say that because even those characters had more going on to them in their stories than here. And I know to like put the Doctor with this dad, you sacrifice like the companions and like some of their characterization. But again, just like anything to reference that they're still going through the shit that they were just going through, not just 1 episode ago, but like 2 episodes ago. It reads very like cookie cutter companion, and I get that probably isn't all Gaddis's fault because he planned this for like he wrote this for before the heavy shit in the series was supposed to hit the fan, but it's still jarring. And the fact that the only thing they shoehorn the Doctor's death arc in there at the very end with that sing-song lullaby bullshit, which I was fine with, like in the meat of the episode.
It's really stupid. I can't take it seriously.
We thought it was good.
It played okay for me, but just at the very end where it's like they're having like a nice moment and out of nowhere it pops back in. It was the only thing in the episode to like truly take me out of the moment of just like, what the fuck? I don't remember this happening. And then it's just like no indication of what's happening, just like a slow pan to the Doctor's death on the screen. And I was just like, oh, it's even more shoehorned in than normal because they literally didn't plan
after
this.
They finish, I expect like some dude to be like, Doctor Who this Friday, rated R. It sucks. It fucking sucks.
We thought it was good.
Also, personally, I feel like, as I mentioned, with the things that like scare him in the environment being so interesting and varied and non stereotypical or tropey, it feels kind of a letdown for them to just be like, haha, creepy dolls. Like yeah.
I was fine with the dolls, just I don't know. I like the effect of people turning into them. I think that's like the most the most effective they're utilized. And I don't know, you could probably come away with better ways to get to the theme of like love your kid no matter what, like and have that revelation for the dad.
I'm gonna push back on like the dolls thing, because the dolls aren't scary to George. Like, that's the point, that they're kind of like his protectors, and so it's something that's traditionally scary that actually protects him. Like, it's something his mind has created that is defending him, because, you know, they neutralize things that are scary to him, and they're scary to other people. So it's like, it's something that's not scary to him, that's scary to other people, and I think that works in that role as like something that's like generically terrifying to the average person. But for him specifically, it's not actually.
I could see that if it weren't for the fact that when they start to turn towards him, he's clearly scared of them.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that breaks that. But otherwise, I like your interpretation.
Even if it makes sense from a writing standpoint, it's still a letdown from an episode standpoint. Because like they do a really good job of helping portray these things as scary or unsettling, and then they just kind of pop out like the scary dolls, and it feels like it loses a lot of the subtlety.
Yeah, when they're in the shadows, it's a good effect that like something is like watching the companions, and the first time they show themselves, I believe, is when they turn the landlord into one of them. Great scene. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like a take it or leave it thing. I think for the most part, the psychological horror and the horror of the mundane outweighs the more typical stuff, especially like the stuff like playing with the mind, the revelation that like, of course she wasn't pregnant, my wife can't have kids. Like, that's a good moment, and if you don't build that up and set the mood for that properly, that's just a what the fuck. But instead it's just definitely. Like, oh wow, what the fuck. Like, it's
yeah definitely.
Yeah, we definitely liked the slow build up in the episode of the Doctor sort of going through a whole process trying to figure out what's going on, and the way they sort of he plays off of the dad, and just things sort of build up and stuff. Especially the moments between the two are really good. Their banter is just probably one of the best parts of the episode. Like, they have so much, like the banter in this episode is just miles ahead of what's in the other episodes in this season, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think separating Amy and Rory from the Doctor, even if their writing suffers, was a good choice because it allows the Doctor to bounce off someone new, and it allows them to sort of build that relationship, which is important for the episode to work.
Yeah, I think the only weak moment in their dynamic to me was the moment, and this is a moment that they like lampshade it in the most like. They subvert it in the most obvious way in The Doctor Falls, but the whole thing of the Doctor being like, you can't kick me out because I'm this and I've seen stars and I've, like all of that, and like get them to trust him by saying who he is in an impressive and confident way. Like it worked in the moment, but I was thinking in the back of my head, it was just like, oh, there wasn't really anything like extra done there. He was just like, you can't let me leave because I'm not actually who I say I am. And they play it off with a joke, like, oh, you're not from social services, are you? And it's effective in the moment, but that was, like, the only, like, real tropey part for me. Other than that, it was, like, it was good to see him form a connection with, like, a person you don't really see that often on Doctor Who, like a father. Like, that isn't a companion archetype we've really had until Graham, and that's been fumbled to hell and back. So
yeah,
take a drink. But yeah, overall it was nice. This episode does a lot of things right, and the critiques, at least that I'm levying against it, are like, it's not like the other episodes where the critiques are like so like momentous and like so numerous. It's just like these few things stand out to me. Because of the quality of this episode, I notice the lesser things so much more,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think, I really... It's not a bad episode. I definitely have some problems with it. And I think it's kind of at the point where, like, some of the filler stuff isn't really cutting it for me as much, though I will say like filler episodes are fine. Like as I mentioned, like a lot of RTD filler is great, and I think that this works and is definitely I think this is like, I'm trying to think of like what other Gatiss episodes have we done. We had Unquiet Dead, which was nah. We have Victory of the Daleks, which was, oh god, get it the fuck out of here. Like, I don't think he did another one for RTD, because he didn't write Lazarus, he just appeared in it.
Okay, here's a question. If this episode...
Oh, he wrote Idiot's Lantern. Yeah, that episode sucks.
If this episode was in the middle of, like, a great series of Doctor Who, like say series 1 or series 4, would that improve how you view this, or like take it down a few steps?
Take it down a few steps easily.
Okay.
Like, I think I'd like if this replaced Unquiet Dead, which would be weird because like it's not at all written for 9, but whatever. If it was something like this I think I'd still like it more than Unquiet Dead, but it would still definitely be on the lower end of that season just because that season's so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
This is honestly just a generally really good episode for us. I don't think it would really matter what season it was in for us. We would still think it was pretty good. Or really good.
Yeah. The way I put it is if I'm compiling a list for someone that it's like, they don't want to like go through like all the like weird crap or just stuff that doesn't work. They only want to watch like the greats from this series. I'd still put it on the list for series 6. And the fact that like most of the series, like most of the greats for this series are filler or stuff that doesn't really have to do with the main arc. Yes, that's a knock against the series, but I'm also glad that like the quality of series 6 seems to be like backloaded. And that, like, we get this, and then we get,
Girl Who Waited next.
The Girl Who Waited,
which
and then we get the...
That probably is, because I've already watched through season 6 again recently. Girl Who Waited is probably my number 2 pick for this season.
Yeah, it's probably going to be mine. But point being, yeah, I think this deserves to be in conversation for like the good of the series, and even with the stain of like the failed arc, I'd still consider it good Doctor Who. But that's just me.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Yeah, and it's another way of like, we know that 11 is good with kids, but it's also, he's in a different dynamic here than he would have been with like Amelia, which I think is pretty good. Like it allows like a different side of him where he's sort of more, he's still like him. Like I think he mentions like, hey, it's okay to be afraid, and like you don't need to like sort of over coddle him. And
that was one of the things we really liked in this episode, was sort of the Doctor engaging with George on a sort of equal level. You know, that's something he does in general, but I think it really fit the themes of this episode in particular. And you know, we already talked about how the father relationship is really good, but it just really is. And I think the sort of the dynamic of like two men figuring out what to do with a child, and being just positive about it and functional and not being awful, is just really good in general.
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah, the landlord's a scumbag, like everyone, like we mentioned earlier, and it's kind of glad that he gets sucked into the fucking nightmare dimension.
That was, yeah. I mean, I could pull like a JXC, that's a coincidence line, because why is a landlord like coming to you in the middle of the night? Like that's a little weird, but again, like fuck it. It fits the story and like helps put together clues of what's going on. So whatever.
Yeah, we didn't mind it either. And just again, the banter between the Doctor and the dad is just really good. Like I'm thinking about like when they just show up in the dollhouse, and there's that line where the Doctor is like going through the different possibilities of what could be going on, and he's just like, maybe it's just, you know, because everything is made out of wood, and so he's just like, we must be in a dollhouse, or like maybe we're you know, people who eat wood who have decided to like step up in the world, or maybe termites, giant termites. No wait, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
My favorite line was, I've been around the block a few times. I've been around the block so often that they've knocked down those blocks and built super blocks, bigger blocks, and I've been around those, or something like that. It was just quintessential like Doctor Who nonsense talk, but it like felt right in the situation, and not just like, oh, we need some quirky lines here.
Yeah, definitely.
No, and like I think one of the reasons we really like this episode is it feels extremely geared towards 11. Like if I were to think, like at this point, if I were to think of an episode that really just nails 11's character, like this would probably be it so far. It just feels like 11 as a character is really like standing on his own at this point, and I don't know. I think a lot of the episodes in season 5, they were good and portrayed 11 well, but you know, as we sort of talked about then, a lot of them feel like they might be better serviced by like 12, or equally serviced by 12, or maybe even, you know, 10. And this is an episode that I think is just very firmly 11 and couldn't be done as well by any of the others.
Yeah, definitely. And like as someone who usually is can be kind of annoyed with 11's 11ness, I feel like they kind of get it the right level here.
Yeah,
I couldn't imagine another Doctor. I mean, 12 has that moment of just like fear is a superpower, but that's very much like a special case, like like Peter Capaldi smashes everything, but even 10 with like Chloe Weber, I think is her name.
Yeah, I am a Fear Her defender, but I will say this episode is probably better than Fear Her.
Yeah, you don't really feel like an intimate like chemistry connection between 10 and the mom or 10 and the kid, especially because he gets yeeted into a drawing. Like here, I believe like 11 bonds with this family, or at least, the part of the family that is around when he's doing this.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of really good lines. The part at the end is good too. Like, I might pop in around puberty. It tends to get weird about there.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I'm really glad. I'm really glad we didn't get like a third Craig episode where like the kid's a moody teenager. That would suck. That would suck so much.
Hey, look, Chibnall, I'll forgive everything else you've done if you revisit Craig or this family and the kid is trans.
Don't.
Oh,
okay. All right.
That's the only.
No, because here's the thing. He's a fucking lib boomer, so he'd mess it. He'd screw it up.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I take it all back.
Like,
whoever comes after Chibnall.
I appreciate the intent, but do you honestly expect Chris Chibnall to do it correctly?
No, it would be like Kill the Moon, the way Kill the Moon is accidentally a pro-life episode, except I feel like Chibnall would accidentally make an anti-trans episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember the one time that remember fucking the other Mark Gatiss episode where they had a trans actress on to play like a fucking like subhuman character? Remember when they did that?
When is that?
Sleep No More.
Okay.
It's in that garbage fire.
That episode is a fever dream. Was that in an episode of Series 9? Don't they also get in a deaf actress to play a deaf role?
Do they? I think they did. Was the girl in It Takes You Away blind?
One of them, maybe? I forget. There's something in Series 9 where they cast like an actual like disabled or differently abled.
Yeah, in Under the Lake.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I take it back. Maybe Chibnall, don't do that. I take it back. Sorry, boo. The next showrunner can try it out. Okay, as a treat. But yeah, it's a nice open-ended episode, but still doesn't feel compelled to like revisit it. Which, in my opinion, is the best way to do that type of thing, because you aren't marrying yourself to anything like that girl who knows the doctor in A Good Man Goes to War, and we never fucking see her. So...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on to this week's ratings. If you guys are.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go.
Okay. Yeah. Like I dug on it. There are some things that I think are kind of stupid and I don't really vibe with, but it's it didn't cause me physical pain. It's probably the closest that this season ever gets to like a normal Doctor Who. Like this stretch of like fucking Night Terrors, Girl Who Waited, and God Complex are kind of like the closest that it ever gets to getting back into like a normal season sort of flow. So I can at least respect that, and as I said, I think it's a little bit more inspired in terms of setting and tone and feel than what the subject matter would necessarily make you think it would be. So yeah, like I think it's a pretty solid episode, honestly, and I'd give it a solid B.
Yeah, Plot is intriguing, mood is well set. Characters, for the most part, the characters that the episode chooses to focus on, I should say, are well characterized and given enough time, despite some sort of short changing of the companions. Still mostly well done character, and the theme isn't anything new, isn't anything innovative, but it's kind of like warm and like well executed, and honestly is kind of the theme that the whole series should have, which is like how a parent cares for their kid. It's weird that this like filler episode. It's weird this filler episode does that better than the actual series arc, but whatever. Overall, an enjoyable time. It immersed me in the story right up until the very end, where the series arc had to get in the way again. B.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was an overall really good episode to us. We really liked the Doctor's character in this episode and his dynamics with all the other characters. There's been a few episodes this season that are very just absolutely carried by the Doctor. Last season we sort of had a lot of episodes where Rory was the really good character, and I feel like this season, in the episodes that are good and some of the ones that aren't as much, the Doctor is really the one carrying it, which I think is good. And in this episode especially, I really think 11 carries it, and his dynamics with all of the characters are good, and just like I said earlier, the direction of the episode, the pacing is really good. The writing of the lines between the characters is all very good. Overall, I think if there was one thing I could sort of detract on, the dolls aren't the most fitting, and there is maybe not as much substance to this episode, but I think what's there is very good, and so in the end I would probably put this at a 9 out of 10.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Next week we will be discussing The Girl Who Waited. And until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star on an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
I'm your alien child's favorite wooden twink doll, and you can find me on Twitter at skyhigh9_5.
I'm Mina, and you can find me at nomadiclastic on twitter.com.
And we will see you all next week.